You are here because you love dinosaurs, because you love Magic the Gathering, and honestly, because you want to know how to build the greatest dinosaur-themed commander deck in Magic the Gathering history. Well, I've got you on all those things. My name is Bobby Maximus, and you are here at Muscles and Magic the Gathering. I am the Muscles. These cards, they are Magic the Gathering, something that's honestly been a huge passion of mine for over 3 decades. But today we're here to talk about dinosaurs, and I want to get right down to business. Now, the commander I chose for my dinosaur deck was Morophon the Boundless, and you might be asking, Bobby, what about Pantlaza? Bobby, what about Gissel's Sun's Avatar? Fine choices for dinosaur commanders, and honestly, they're probably more popular than Morophon the Boundless. But the reason I chose Morophon the Boundless, and you're going to put these cards back here. If you look at these 2 cards, they're red, they're green, and they're white. There's no blue, there's no black, and there were too many blue and black dinosaurs that I want to include in my commander deck. You see, when I build commander decks, it's not just about winning. It's not just about playability, although I do want my commander decks to be good. I've made no secret about that. But the primary reason I build them, that ranks above all else, if you want to know my philosophy on deck building, is the collectability of it. At one point in my life, I had 40 full commander decks, not 40 full commander decks, sorry, 40 full complete sets of Magic the Gathering, like literally every single set in the card. And I had a bunch of 60 card decks. And then along the way, I decided that commander decks were the best way that I could display my collection. So that mindset, I wanted to explain that because it's important for this deck building process. I build decks with that primary focus in mind, the collectability of it. And so Morophon I picked because it was 5 colors. And by the way, if you're having a hard time building a kinfolk type deck and you've got a lot of colors, say you're building assassins, say you're building dinosaurs, say you're building dragons, say you're building elementals, Morophon is always a fine choice. Although, in my opinion, it does work better with the bigger creatures. It's a changeling. This card is every creature type. As Morophon the Boundless enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. We're obviously going to choose dinosaurs. And then spells of the chosen type you cast cost. Basic 5 less mana to cost, a white, a blue, a black, a red, and a green. This effect reduces only the amount of colored mana you pay. And then it gives your creatures a bump. They all get +1/+1. So we went with Morophon the Boundless. Now we're going to talk about the creatures, the heart and soul of the dinosaur deck, all right? We already saw Pantlaza. Whenever Pantlaza, Sun Favored, or another dino enters the battlefield under your control, you may discover X, where X is that creature's toughness. Do this only once each turn. So discover, basically what happens is a dinosaur enters the battlefield under your control, and say that toughness is 7. Basically what you would do is you would discover 7. And I actually pulled up Magic the Gathering's definition of discover here so I could read it exactly to you. It's a keyword ability that allows you to exile cards from your library until you find a non-land card with a mana value equal or less than a specified number. You can then either cast that card for free, which is amazing, or you could put it into your hand. The remaining exiled cards are shuffled back into your library. So this Discover X would be discover whatever the creature's toughness is. So great card in a dinosaur deck because there's a lot of big, beefy creatures in here. We have Gissel's Sun's Avatar. Trample, Vigilance, Haste. This is oftentimes people's most popular choice for a dinosaur commander. But again, I needed some blue and black dinosaurs in here. Whenever Gissel's Sun's Avatar deals combat damage to a player, reveal that many cards from the top of your library. Put any number of dino creatures from among them onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Regisaur Alpha, a super good budget dinosaur. Great value for the casting cost. Other dinosaurs you control have haste. That's huge in this deck. And whenever Regisaur Alpha enters the battlefield, create a 3/3 green dinosaur creature token with trample. So it's really 2 dinos for the price of 1. Trumpeting Carnosaur. Trample. When Trumpeting Carnosaur enters the battlefield, there's that keyword again, discover 5. And then if you discard Trumpeting Carnosaur, it deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker. So I love that because that can act as a bit of a removal spell. You don't run enough removal in your commander decks. Trust me when I tell you that. Etali, Primal Storm, great card. Whenever it attacks, exile the top card of each player's library and then you may cast any number of spells from among those cards without paying their mana cost. Incredible dinosaur. This can be an absolute game changer. Ravenous Tyrannosaurus. I included as many Jurassic Park cards as I could in this deck because obviously Jurassic Park, it's iconic for dinosaurs. I almost called this deck Jurassic Park. I actually went with an older school movie, The Land Before Time, with some childhood memories. But yeah, Jurassic Park had to be represented. It's got Devour 3. As this enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. This creature enters the battlefield with 3 times that many 1/1 counters on it for each of those creatures. And whenever Ravenous Tyrannosaurus attacks, it deals damage equal to its power to up to 1 other target creature. Excess damage is dealt to that creature's controller instead. Ghalta and Morophon, one of my favorite dinos of all time. It's actually a dinosaur vampire. Trample, whenever you attack, choose 1. Create a tapped and attacking XX green dinosaur creature token with trample, where X is the greatest power among other attacking creatures. Or create X 1/1 white vampire creature tokens with lifelink, where X is the number of other attacking creatures. So you got a couple of choices. You can get a big, beefy, bad creature onto the battlefield, or you can flood the battlefield with a lot of these little, like people call them chump blockers, but little creatures, and that might come in handy. So you've got a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? Variability with this card, and I love it. Waking Sun's Avatar. When Wakening Sun's Avatar enters the battlefield, if you cast it from your hand, destroy all non-dino creatures. I love asymmetric board wipes. Like, yes, Farewell's a good card. Yes, Sunfall can be a good card. Yes, Wrath of God can be a good card. But the problem is it wipes out everybody's creatures. With Wakening Sun's Avatar, it only wipes out non-dinos. So I love these asymmetric board wipes. Ghalta Stampede Tyrant, iconic dinosaur. Trample, and when Ghalta Stampede Tyrant enters the battlefield, put any number of creature cards from your hand onto the battlefield. Great card, especially to cheat out some dinos. Indoraptor, the perfect hybrid. Bloodthirst X. This creature enters the battlefield with X 1/1 counters on it, where X is a damage dealt to your opponents this turn. Menace, and then Enrage. Whenever Indoraptor, the perfect hybrid, is dealt damage, choose an opponent at random. Indoraptor deals damage equal to its power to that creature unless they sacrifice a non-token creature. Then we have Etali Primal Conqueror. Trample, and when Etali Primal Conqueror enters the battlefield, each player exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. You may cast any number of spells from among the non-land cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs. And then you can transform Etali if you pay a bunch of mana or life. And it turns into Etali the Primal Sickness. Trample, indestructible. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, they get that many poison counters. Swooping Pterodon. Flying Haste. Whenever Swooping Pterodon or another dinosaur with flying enters the battlefield under your control, gain control of target creature an opponent controls until end of turn. Untap that creature, gains Flying and Haste till the end of turn. At the beginning of the next end step, target land deals 3 damage to that creature. Bone Horde Dracosaur, great card for a dinosaur deck, great card for a dragon deck. At the beginning of your upkeep, and by the way, it's got Flying and First Strike. At the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play them this turn. If you exile the land card this way, create a 3/1 red dinosaur creature token. If you exile the non-land card this way, create a treasure token. Blue Loyal Raptor. Partner with Owen Grady, Raptor Trainer, so you know he's in this deck. When this creature enters the battlefield, target player may put Owen from their into their hand from the library, then shuffle. And I'm actually looking for him right now because that's the next card I kind of want to feature here. For each kind of counter on Blue Loyal Raptor, each other dinosaur you control enters the battlefield with a counter of that kind on it. And here's Owen Grady. Partner with Blue Loyal Raptor, and then put your choice, if you tap it, of a Menace, Trample, Reach, or Haste counter on target dinosaur. Activate only as a sorcery. We have the Cresting Mosasaurus. Now, remember I said I wanted to include some of those blue and black dinosaurs. This was one of them, and there are a few other really good dinosaurs like that in here. It's got Emerge, colorless 6 and 1 blue mana. You may cast this spell by sacrificing a creature and paying the Emerge cost, reduced by that creature's mana value. When Cresting Mosasaurus enters the battlefield, if you cast it, return each non-dinosaur creature to its owner's hand. So again, kind of like an asymmetrical board wipe. So I love those cards. It's one of the things I love about this Dino deck. Indominus Rex Alpha. Listen, Dominus Rex Alpha enters the battlefield, discard any number of creature cards. It enters with a flying counter on it. If that card discarded this way has flying, the same is true for first strike, double strike, death touch, hexproof, haste, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, trample, and vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card for each counter on it, so it can be useful for card draw as well. Nezahal, Primal Tide, Elder Dinosaur. Again, there's a lot of Elder Dinosaurs in this deck. Again, I'm trying to collect. I'm trying to feature my collection. So Nezahal, Primal Tide can't be countered. You have no maximum hand size. Whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, you draw a card. Listen, I have said this before. I will say it again. The three most important parts of a commander deck are card draw, tutoring, and mana ramp. So you got a bunch of those three things in this deck. I always try to include those. If you discard 3 cards, exile Nezahal, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Copy Swarm. At the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, create a tapped token that's a copy of Copy Swarm. Displace the Dinosaurs. This is from that Doctor Who Universes Beyond set. I loved Doctor Who growing up, so I absolutely love that set. This dinosaur is a historic permanent, enters the battlefield under your control. It becomes a 7/7 dinosaur creature in addition to its other types. There's a bunch of artifacts in this deck, which are all historic. So this has got a lot of really good synergy with that. Hunting Velociraptor, Jurassic Park again. First strike, dinosaur spells you cast have Prowl. You may cast a spell for its Prowl cost if you dealt combat damage to a player this turn with a creature, with any of its creature types. So a way to cheat out dinosaurs super cheap. Tranquil Throwback. When it enters the battlefield, you can pay a green mana up to 3 times. When you pay this cost 1 or more times, choose up to that many. Destroy target artifact or enchantment removal again, and you want to be able to remove artifacts and enchantments. Super powerful magic. This helps you take care of that Soul Ring, that arcane signet, maybe a Rhystic Study or Smothering Tithe. Exile target player's graveyard, or you gain 4 life. Polyraptor. Enrage, whenever Polyraptor is dealt damage, create a token that's a copy of Polyraptor. Bloom Tender. Now we've got some mana ramp for each color among permanents you control. Add 1 mana of that color to your mana pool. Delighted Halfling, all right? It gives you a colorless mana, or add 1 mana of any color. And then you spend this mana only to cast a legendary spell, and that spell can't be countered. We got the Birds of Paradise, arguably the greatest mana dork of all time. Noble Hierarch, another mana dork, and then Dryad of the Elysian Grove. You may play an additional land on each of your turns. Lands you control are every basic land type in addition to their other types. And I just realized I probably need to put a Fabro Elder in here. Great card for mana ramp, but I did not have an extra one. So that's another consideration when I'm building my decks. I'm actually pulling my deck up on Moxfield right now so I can refer to it. All my decks are on my Moxfield. I will put a link to this one in the show notes. But sometimes when I build decks, there's cards I want to include. But as you can see, these are real cards, right? I don't use proxies. I don't build decks using the graphics on the screen. A lot of content creators do that to show you how to build the optimal deck. I'm building a real deck. Like when I went to build Dinosaurs, I had to take apart, remember I said I had 40 complete sets? I had to take a bunch of them apart. I had to source my dinosaurs. I had to look through extra piles of cards. You can see here, I've always got extra piles of cards around. I'm always working through my cards to build a deck, and sometimes I don't have the card I need. Now, maybe I can order it from Card Kingdom or TCG or whatever. Usually I get it from Card Kingdom, but I will try to order it and like top up my decks, if you will. But sometimes I just don't have the card and I don't replace it. And so Fabro Elder didn't have one of those, but that would be a great include in this deck. And it's great for any type of 4 or 5 color deck to include a card like that. We're going to move on to Sorceries and Instants. We've got Show and Tell. Each player may put an artifact, creature, enchantment, or land card from his or her hand onto the battlefield. Love this card when you have the bigger, beefier creatures. I use this in my Colored Eldrazi deck, use it in my Dragon deck, use it in my Dinosaur deck, use it in my Elementals deck. Obviously wouldn't use this in something like a Merfolk deck because they're too small and somebody can get cheat a bigger creature out, but it's great with the bigger creatures. Commune with Dinosaurs. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a dinosaur or land card from among them and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Savage Order is an additional cost to cast this spell. Create a creature with power 4 or greater. Search your library for a dinosaur creature card, then put it onto the battlefield and shuffle. It gains indestructible to your next turn. We talked about tutors. Great budget tutor here, Insatiable Avarice. Search your library for a card, then shuffle, put that card on top. And then if you add a couple, target player draws 3 cards and loses 3 life. Nature's Rhythm. Search your library. This is a new one from that Tarkir Dragonstorm set. Search your library for a creature card with mana value X or less. Put it onto the battlefield and shuffle it. It's not harmonized, which means you can get it back from your graveyard. Demonic Tutor, greatest tutor of all time. That had a place in here. 3 steps ahead. Great counterspell with Spree again. Create a token that's a copy of target artifact or creature you control, and then draw 2 cards and discard a card. Final Showdown. Love this card from the Outlaws of Thunder Junction. All creatures lose all abilities until the end of turn. Choose a creature you control. It gains indestructible until the end of turn, and then you can destroy all creatures, so it's got a board wipe if you get in trouble, and a classic counterspell. Bobby Maximus, why don't you have an Imperial Seal in here? Why don't you have a Vampiric Tutor? Well, I'll refer you to my earlier statement. I didn't have enough of them, right? I've got a bunch of Vampiric Tutors, but they're used in other decks, so I went with the Insatiable Avarice. So sometimes with my decks, you'll get a card that you're like, that's not optimal, but you can't always have the optimal card in your deck, especially I'm well over 50 commander decks right now. And so I only have so many cards to go around. Like, for example, the Mox Diamond. I would literally put a Mox Diamond in every single deck I have, but I only got a couple of them, so I had to make a choice. Let's move on to enchantments. Rhythm of the Wild, one of my favorite enchantments of all time. Creatures you control can't be countered, and they have Riot. We have the Prismatic Omen, a little bit of mana fixing here. Love that card. Sneak Attack, again, just like Show and Tell, but great when you have big, beefy creatures. You may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. That creature gains haste. Sacrifice a creature at the beginning of the next end step. So not exactly like Show and Tell, but kind of like it in that I can cheat out some big, bad creatures. We got Welcome to Jurassic Park. You knew that had to be in there. It's a saga. For phase 1 of the saga, if you will, for each opponent, up to 1 target non-creature artifact they control becomes a 0/4 wall artifact creature with Defender for as long as you control the saga. Number 2, create a 3/3 green dinosaur creature token with Trample. It gains haste until the end of turn. And then number 3, destroy all walls, exile this saga, then return it to the battlefield transformed under your control. And let's see what this guy transforms to. I bet the suspense is killing you, but you've probably seen this card. And the iconic one of the set, Jurassic Park. Each dinosaur card in your graveyard has escape. The escape cost is equal to the card's mana cost plus exile 3 other cards from your graveyard. And then you can add a green mana for each dino you control. So this is a big one. I love it. Obviously, I love Jurassic Park. You know that had to be in the deck. The Growing Rights of Itmalok. All right. Whenever Growing Rights of Itmalok enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You reveal a creature card from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. And at the beginning of your end step, if you control 4 or more creatures, you transform this. So let's look at what this transforms to. And it transforms to the Itmalok Cradle of the Sun. You add a green to your mana pool, or you add green to your mana pool for each creature you control. So kind of like a budget guy's Cradle, all right? Unnatural Growth, useful in a dinosaur deck. At the beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control until the end of the turn. Massive casting cost, but in a dinosaur deck, this can be a game ender. And another one I love, when you have the bigger, badder creatures, you may cast non-land cards from your hand without paying their mana costs. This is huge. It's got a giant casting cost, but again, you have a deck with big, bad, nasty creatures. It is necessary, all right? You notice a lot of cards with high casting costs in here, and I couldn't help it with dinosaurs, all right? Normally, I talk about mana value. I talk about mana value a lot. Now, the total mana value of this deck is 226. Now, what's mana value? It's all of these symbols added together here. So this has got a mana value of 10. This has one of 5. So there's 15 for 2 cards. I really, really strive to keep my decks under 200. That's what I consider a really competitive number. but sometimes I can't. With Dinos, it was almost impossible. With Eldrazi, it's almost impossible. With Elementals, it's almost impossible. It gets really, really difficult. I was able to do it with Dragons, which was a huge feat for me. So I would like to get the mana value down, but when I can't, I try to find ways to cheat out my spells. So Show and Tell, Sneak Attack, Omniscience, if you're playing Dragons, Dracogenesis, something like that, all right? And there has to be a lot of mana ramp in that deck as well. Anyway, the mana value back to this is 226. I said I like it to be under 200, couldn't get there, but we went with 226. The other fix I'll do for that is I'll add more lands. So this has 38 lands instead of my standard, kind of 36. So it works pretty well. And it's not like 226 is not competitive. Just under 200 is going to be ultra competitive. 2 to 250 is going to be competitive. Above 250 to say 300, it's going to be kind of competitive. Over 300, unless it's a gimmicky type deck, it's not going to be competitive. And what I mean by gimmicky is do you have a way to cheat out all your spells? Something like a Brains deck, if you will. Anyway, I digress. We're here to talk about Dinosaurs, so let's look at the artifacts we included. The Timeless Lotus, a great way to get a bunch of mana. The Fist of Suns. These two work really, really well together. Chromatic Lantern, awesome in a 5-color deck. The Arcane Signet, the Soul Ring, the Felwar Stone, incredible in a 5-color deck. The Ancient Cornucopia, whenever you cast a spell that's one or more colors, you may gain 1 life for each of that spell's colors. Do this only once each turn, add 1 mana of any color. We have the Quicksilver Amulet, a way to cheat out those big dinosaurs. We have the Commander Sphere. Again, in a 5-color deck, this card is awesome. Urza's Incubator, a way to reduce the casting cost of the dino. So you can see, because the mana value is higher, and because a lot of these creatures were so big, the dinosaurs have massive casting costs, there's a lot more mana ramp in this deck than I'd normally add. So normally, for my formula, when the total mana value of the deck is going to be under 200 and the creatures are relatively small, because there is a correlation there, I'll go with 36 lands and I'll go with somewhere between 6 and 8 pieces of mana ramp, right? So if you look in this already, we had the Delighted Halfling, we had the Birds of Paradise, we had the Dryad of the Elysian Grove, which kind of acts as like a mana ramp. We had a Noble Hierarch, right? We had a Being Tender, so we had 5. But then we also have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Here's 15 because it's a mana reducer. So you can see we got a bunch of mana reducing type things. We have a Mana Crypt. Don't come at me for banned cards. I play with banned cards. I want to feature all the cards I have in my Magic the Gathering collection. And here's my thing with banned cards, right? People want cards banned because allegedly they're unfun. People also find a Rhystic Study unfun. People find a card and I'm actually building a Grand Arbiter Augustine deck. People find a Grand Arbiter Augustine unfun. People find Propaganda unfun. People find the Winter Orb unfun. And these are all cards that are totally legal. So I am not taking banned cards out of my deck. I love all the Magic the Gathering cards. And I really believe with Magic the Gathering, the bracket system is a guide, and I really, really like it. But in my pod, in my groups, we play Rule 0, where you can play with these cards. So yeah, Mana Crypt is going in, and I really, really, really think this should be unbanned, by the way. Actually, I'm on the favor of, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole here because we're here to talk about dinosaurs. I want all the cards unbanned, just so we are clear. Talisman of Progress. We have a Prismatic Lens. We have 3 signets here, Orzhov, Boros, and Izzet Signet. I'm not a huge fan of the signets. I like talismans better, but I didn't have any. So I went with the signets and a Talisman of Resilience. So we have a bunch. I mean, there's an overabundance of mana ramp in this deck. A couple of little tips for you when you're building a deck before we go over the lands. And I guess we'll start with the basic ones first, as I get into this tip. But 2 ways to make your decks better. 1, try to get that total mana value. That's how I do it. I don't do average mana cost or anything like that, or average mana value. I do total mana value. Try to lower that. If you can't get under 200, that's fine. But if you can go from 230 to 215 with the same power level, you're going to have a better deck. If you can go 300 to 290, you're going to have a better deck. So I'm always looking at ways to increase the speed of my deck. And that's why I love Power Creep, because the more good stuff comes out with less of a casting cost, I can do this to make my deck work that much faster. So Wizards, if you want to create some dragons with lower casting costs, not dragons, dinosaurs, I had dragons on the mind because of Tarkir Dragon Storm coming out. But if you want to create another dinosaur set with some better dinosaurs, the lower casting cost, I am all for it, because that's where I will start to make my cuts and I will improve this deck. And on that note, by the time you watch this video, like if you're watching this right now, which you are, because we're here, right? The deck might have changed a little bit, because if I can get a Sabro Elder, which I mentioned earlier, I will put it in this deck. If they do come out with a dinosaur set, I keep wanting to say dragons and dinosaurs, but if they come out with another dino set, I will adjust my deck. So when you look at my Mox Field, when you look at my decks list, if it's a little different, no, you're not crazy. You're not going nuts. It's just that Bobby Maximus changed his decks, and that's what I do in my spare time. I absolutely love tinkering with my decks, so it's a big part of my life, so I'm always working on them. I might adjust this deck 2 seconds after this video, all right? We have a bunch of basic lands here. As I mentioned, I have 38 lands in this deck, a little more than my normal 36, but again, mana is everything in a deck with big creatures, so that's one of the ways I solve for the problem of having higher casting costs of creatures. And now let's go through the other lands pretty quick, the non-basic lands. We have Training Center. We have a Blooming Marsh. We have a Razor Verge Thicket. We have a City of Brass. We have a Spire Garden. We have a Restless Ridgeline, and that had to go in there because it's dinosaur themed, all right? Look at the second ability here. Restless Ridgeline becomes a 3/4 red and green dinosaur creature until the end of turn if it's still a land. We have the Drowned Catacomb, Clearwater Pathway, Spire Bluff Canal, Seachrome Coast, Tide Channel Pathway. I love these pathway cards with the dual sides, right? That was from Chaldean. Botanical Sanctum, Rejuvenating Springs, Black Cleave Cliffs, the Forbidden Orchard, the Command Tower, Exotic Orchard, Willow Rush Verge from Ether Drift. By the way, I loved Ether Drift. Copperline Gorge, Luxury Suite, Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth. Each land is a swamp in addition to its other creatures' types. All right, I love that card, and I will try to include that when I do have a 5-color or 4-color deck. I wish I had more of them, just so we are clear. The Mines of Moria, Zeotor's Proving Ground and Jetmer's Garden from Streets of New Capenna, one of my favorite, sets of all time. Actually, it's funny. I talked about my 40 complete sets that I had. I don't have 40 anymore. I took a lot of them apart to build my commander decks, but that is one of the ones I left intact because it's one of my favorite sets of all time. We have the Sea of Clouds. We have the Concealed Courtyard. We have the Inspiring Vantage. We have the Unclaimed Territory. We have the Shire, and we have one more. Look at that. It is the Taiga. It is a dual land. Now, you might be asking, Bobby, why do you have these plain lands? I kind of ran out of some specialty lands. Now, there's nothing wrong with having basics in a 5-color deck, but I would prefer to have a bunch of these duals. I actually have, I think, 9 different dual lands in my Dragon deck. I have some in my Legends deck. I have some spread throughout my collection, but I didn't have enough left for my Dinosaur deck. And so here we are. These are the lands I chose. And with that, that is my Dinosaur deck. Again, I built it around this guy, Morophon the Boundless, because he is 5 colors. And it did allow me to include a lot of those dinosaurs that I really like, right? Like, imagine if I did not have 5 colors, then you would miss out on the Compy Swarm. You'd miss out on Nezahal. You'd miss out on Indominus Rex, Iconic Dinosaur. You'd miss out on Cresting Montosaurus. You'd miss out on Blue Loyal Raptor, which means by default, I probably wouldn't be able to include Owen Grady. You would miss out on Indoraptor. You would miss out on, I'm trying to see if there's any more, and that's it. I mean, these are the ones you'd miss out on, but look at these. These are iconic dinosaurs, and I wanted to include them, so I went with Morophon. So if I can give you any piece of deck building advice, if you want to include all cards from the Magic the Gathering universe, Morophon is always a great choice for a kinfolk type commander. And that is this episode of Muscles and Magic the Gathering. We talked about dinos, one of my favorite kinfolk type groups. Really, really appreciate you, but I do have an ask. If there are any cards you would add to this deck, please name them and why. The why is so important to me, whether it's from a collectability standpoint or from a playability standpoint, in the comments below. Like, I bet some of you will be like, hey, what about a monster manual in this deck? The monster manual will go really, really good in this deck. What about something like a Dragon Arch? A Dragon Arch will probably go pretty good in this deck for some of those multicolored dragons too. Like, give me ideas on how to improve my deck, because A, I might have, like, for example, here's a whole extra stack of artifacts I have lying around, right? It's a pretty big stack. I may have it in this stack. Now, this is just artifacts, but I have a giant stack of green. By the way, these are all rares and mythics, but I do have boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of commons, and I've got all my, what were complete sets and binders here. You can see I took a card out here, took a card out here that I needed, took a card out here that I needed, but I do have resources for cards. Now, this is my Shadows over Innistrad set, but I have a bunch of binders. So what I'm trying to say is chances are I do have the card, right? Or I can get it. So if you make a case for it, I will put it in my deck and I will call you out in one of my videos, or thank you in the comments. So yeah, give me some ideas on how to build my deck. Make sure you subscribe. Subscriptions are important. Listen, I want this Magic the Gathering channel to be the biggest one in the world. And I'm really, really, really trying to bring a lot of positivity to the channel, right? I think everyone deserves a seat at the table, and I want every single person to feel welcome here. Whether you play with band cards, you don't play with band cards. You play bracket 1, you play bracket 4, you play bracket 3. Like, this is literally just a real celebration of my love of Magic the Gathering, and I just want to be positive about it. So please subscribe, spread the word, and tune in for your next deck tech on your favorite type of deck. Thanks for coming by.